Entrepreneur's Enigma is a podcast for the ups and downs of entrepreneurship, so the wins and the fails that we all face being entrepreneurs, and how we learn from adversity. Every week I talk to a different entrepreneur with a story to tell. I'm Seth Goldstein. Come with me on the journey. This is Entrepreneur's Enigma. Let's get started.
It goes a little bit longer than I thought it was. Hey, everybody, welcome to another edition of the Entrepreneur's Enigma. Oh, it's going to play again. Let's not do that. I'll put the beginning in again on post. It's going to loop. Yay! I forgot to turn off the loop. Hey, everybody, welcome to another edition of the Entrepreneur's Enigma podcast. I'm Seth, as always. I am here with a friend of mine, a neighbor of mine. We met through Deb Eckerling. I think he is also a friend of Annie Ruggles. Annie P. Ruggles. Oh, he's shaking his head in the off stage. He will have to meet Annie P. Ruggles because she is freaking fantastic. He'll become an FOA. So, Robbie is an event designer, consultant, executive Zoom producer, and is recognized as a networking expert by NPR, PCMA, Harvard Business Review, Forbes, Lifehacker on Inc., and everyone else all around. He is an author of 3 books. Yes, 3 books. So he's ambitious there. That's very good. He's written the book on how to make Zooms not boring, because Zooms can be quite boring, as we all know from the past 3 years. It is called Break Out of Boredom, Low-Tech Solutions for Highly Engaged Zoom Events. He wrote the book on croissants and bagels, which has nothing to do with croissants and bagels per se. It's more about a business book, but it's cool. It's croissants and bagels, so yay. He is a professional TEDx speaker, HBR, Harvard Business Review contributor, host of On the Schmooze. I'm Jewish, I can't say schmooze? What the heck? On the Schmooze podcast and the No More Bad Zooms virtual happy hour. Robbie is an openly transgendered owner of Robbie Samuels LLC and a certified LGBT Business Enterprise. I got it all in there, but I skipped a little bit, but I got it all in there. Hey, Rob. Oh, let's add you to the... Oh, I have to add you. There we go. I'm still getting used to this. Hey, Robbie! Yeah, let's unmute you there.
Hello.
Oh, man. That's a long bio, but a good one, too. How's it going, bud? How you doing?
Got to pack all those nouns in, credibility bios as they are. Hey,
That's
thanks
awesome.
for inviting me on, Seth.
Oh, this is so much fun. So we met through Deb Eckerling's fantastic Deb show, where she throws gold stars at you, which is kind of funny. And apparently, I thought you were an FOA, a friend of Annie P. Ruggles. You will become one. I will introduce you after the show, because Annie. I thought I met Deb was through Annie, and Annie. I mean, you think I'm insane? Annie is like the female version of me, like whoa, all over the place. That's fun. So, Robbie, how are you? I'm not gonna ask you what the weather is, because I can tell you what the weather is, because you are literally 20 minutes away from me, which was kind of neat, because we met on Deb's show, who was also on the Marketing Podcast Network. And not only we never met before, but locationally we're very close by. We're neighbors.
It's always fascinating, because my network is definitely global, to be introduced to someone geographically like my neighbor.
And not like, oh, we're in the Philadelphia area. No, he's down 202, about 20 minutes from me.
Yeah.
I mean, talk about a neighbor. So we still have to get that coffee, buddy. So awesome. So, Robbie, I kind of tell people a little bit about you. You are the king of Zoom and making it not boring, because Zooms can be quite a snooze if you're not careful. But how did this all get started? I mean, because this is the Entrepreneur's Enigma podcast. You were in corporate. You did do you never in corporate.
Not corporate, no. So for over a decade before the pandemic, I was working to be recognized as a networking expert with a focus on networking at conferences. And that time
in person.
Yeah. Well, back then we didn't have to qualify. It was just called events.
Yes, events.
So for half that time I was employed, I spent 15 years working in nonprofit, and 10 of those years, which overlapped with this time period, I organized fundraising events and did major gift work. So my background's events, conferences, small dinners, big galas, and I started speaking kind of as a side hustle back in 2000 and probably like 6, 7, 8 pro bono. 2009, I started getting paid professionally.
Ooh.
And I was doing 1 to 4 talks a month using my paid time off. I left my career in 2014 to focus on entrepreneurship full time and needed a new audience because my audience was all nonprofits and I was trying to figure out how to expand. So I subsequently launched a podcast, On the Schmooze, that you mentioned, wrote my first book, Croissants versus Bagels, which was about body language and networking.
Mm-hmm.
And then a group coaching program, wrote for Harvard Business Review, did a TEDx talk. TEDx talk comes out January 2020. I am poised to be an overnight success, 10 years in the making. And 2 months later, nobody needs any of the skills or experience I'd acquired in the previous, 10, 15 years. I had to find a new way to show up and offer value. I wrote a blog post on March 12th, 9 ways to network in a pandemic. And one of those ways was to host a virtual happy hour. And I reached out to my network on Thursday at 8 p.m. and said, hey, anyone think they'd come? Folks said yes. So Friday, March 13th, 2020, I hosted my first ever virtual happy hour. And short story is that 8 months later or so, I was the owner of a thriving new 6-figure business based on all new revenue streams. And I was able to really kind of reinvent myself and became a virtual event design consultant and executive Zoom producer. And part of my secret to my success is that I'm a business growth strategy coach. And in March, I was already coaching about a dozen entrepreneurs a week on behalf of a company. And then they asked me to take over a cohort of 120 students going through an online course about launching an online course. So I ended up doing a ton of research calls with all of these business owners and entrepreneurs, as well as all the people in my network who wanted to pick my brain. So I was able to launch a certification program that piloted as a 4-week program without certification in May. But within 2 months, it was a certification program that was great.
Rock and rolling.
Yeah, so it all, I worked so hard in 2020. I took off Father's Day and US Thanksgiving, and that was it. Like every day from April to December.
I'm exhausted just thinking about that 2020 for you. We were all trying to figure out what the heck was going on here. And, 2020 was the year of, let's get on Zoom and have networking chats. Mm-hmm. They were dreadful.
Not mine.
Not yours.
Because, my goal here, Seth, is, and it's my goal for everyone, not just myself, is that we all get 5% better every time we Zoom, whether we're speaking, hosting, or participating. And I just had a lot of stage time, most of which I was creating for myself in those early months. So within the first few months, like I was leaps and bounds ahead of other folks.
Yeah.
But I will tell you that on March 13th, I had not yet looked at the settings. I've been using Zoom for like year 1. But I didn't know I had breakout rooms. I didn't know about polls. Like so much I didn't know and I didn't have enabled. So the learning curve was steep in the beginning, but it's amazing how much faster you can learn when you're just doing it all the time.
Exactly. And so you're still doing the what's it called again? The networking.
So no more bad Zoom virtual happy hour. Got branded that on April 14th, 2020. I've been doing it for about a month.
Dates. Well, good for you.
Yeah, and I ran it weekly for 2 months for free.
That's brave.
Sorry, 2 months for 2 years. Sorry, I ran it weekly for 2 years, and never charged for it. But that's the community that helped me figure out that I had a new revenue plan. Yeah. And now I host it still once a month for free, and then the other Fridays I run a content and a connection club, which is a Friday mastermind and an online community. And I could give away all my content. I charge $25 a month, and half of it goes to charity. So it is not the way I'm making my big bucks, but it is the way I'm bringing people closer to me, and we're staying in touch and having a good time. I just
it covers
love
some
my
bills
Friday
here and
community.
There. Covers a little bit of some of the expense, which is kind of nice. And also, if people put some money behind it, even if it's $5, they're more apt to show up.
The quality of the conversations changed when I shifted about a year ago, and that was intentional. I think when we first kicked it off, it was $10 for like the first founder circle, and there were still people who didn't sign up. So give people a choice. And now we're just having these really rich conversations. So part of it is that I love coaching, but it's only like 10% of my business. Mm-hmm. And this is a way for me to stay sort of current and really it's ongoing research really and find
It
out what
is.
people are needing help with. 90% of my business these days is either speaking at, hosting, producing, training, doing design strategy all around, mostly virtual events. But I also, with all my background experience, do event design for in-person as well. So, and these days I don't even have to go to the event. I do like 10 hours of pre-work with the client and their speakers, and then they have a better experience. It's pretty amazing.
That's fantastic. So the pandemic was good for you.
Well, lemons, right?
Good. It's never good.
Yeah, lemons. We all got handed a bad rap, and
you mean lemonade?
Some people hit the gas and tried and tried and tried, and some people said, "I'll see what happens September," and they waited. And I think 3 years later, we're seeing a difference in people's potential based on what they did those first few months. I think, speaking, since we're talking to entrepreneurs, I think that was a really freeing time, Seth. And I want to keep that mindset, because in those first 6 months, we weren't looking at each other. We were very inward focused. We were navel gazing hardcore because we were trying to figure out how to rebuild our own businesses. So if someone else put something out there that didn't work very well and perhaps just completely failed, we didn't particularly pay attention. We weren't holding people to a high standard. We were just impressed that people tried things. I want to be in that space where I'm not afraid to try things, and I'm not afraid of failure, because while I'm talking about my success, what I'm not having to talk about is all the things I tried in March, April, May, June that didn't work out, right? But
and that's the story.
Kept trying things.
That's the thing that people forget, is that Robbie's been working this for more than a decade. Not the Zoom part per se, but you're not an overnight success. Your overnight success is like more than a decade in the making.
Oh yeah, no, I now joke
people
that
never
it's 10 years in a pandemic.
10 years and a pandemic, a 3-year pandemic.
10 years in a pandemic. I'm actually marking 14 years of being paid for something other than a day job right now,
That's
this
fantastic.
month.
Yeah, I'm on 15 actually. Yeah, we're we kind of escape the corporate overlords, or the nonprofit overlords in your case.
Yep.
15. It's amazing. You blink and it's like, wait, it's been that long? Holy mackerel!
And I couldn't have foreseen what I got into. I was slightly prepared for this in the sense that when I was 20, my dad read an article that said that by the time I was 40, I would have 4 careers, and that sense of oh, that's interesting. And then I had this realization at 20 years old that there's probably a way in which I'm going to be doing something that doesn't exist yet. Now, in 1994, that's not a very obvious concept. No. Nowadays, it's very clear that we're going to constantly keep new technology, new everything. So I actually full-time went into entrepreneurship at 39 years old because I was like, well, got to squeeze one more career in. But I do think that ability to be novel and creative, and even what my business was when I started it, full time in 2015, and what it is today in 2023, I could never have foreseen. And it's been wonderful.
It's fantastic. So what is the best thing about being an entrepreneur? Because you've done both. I mean, you've 14 years into the entrepreneurial journey, but now what is the best thing?
Well, it's funny. My mentor, Dora Clark, said, you'll know it's time to quit your day job when it gets in the way of your business.
I love
so that's, first of all, my best advice on that front. I think that there's the illusion of security when you have a job that it's really hard to see outside of. You can't imagine a world other than the paycheck and the healthcare, and just there's a consistency to that. But then layoffs happen, mergers and acquisitions happen, you have poor health, whatever it is, and you suddenly realize the security isn't as secure as you thought. My wife was laid off 2 months ago, just an example. But I think now I'm much more in a driver's seat around the destiny that I have. And my answer now is not save so much as figure out a new way to make more money and just keep trying new things. I think the other thing is the ripple effect of the work that I do in the world. I really believe in the value of what I do. And so I'm not quiet about both my successes or my struggles, because I think people are learning from me, watching what I do, but then there are people I directly help as well. I'm just excited when we all sort of are doing better. So I'm a big fan of giving away knowledge. I give away a lot of great content. I take to heart that idea, give away your best stuff, because if they can work with it and DIY their way through reading a book of mine or watching a video, then they're not an ideal client, but I still help them. And now they're a great referral partner. If they read it and they realize, wow, there's a gap between what I know and what I need to know, I can't do this on my own. Well, now they became a great prospect.
Love it. Either way, it's all plus.
Yes.
All benefit. Yeah.
Giving away time or money depletes me because that is finite, right? I don't have unlimited money or time, but giving away knowledge does not deplete me, and it all creates new opportunities. And some of those opportunities are going to flow back in my direction. Maybe not even from people I directly helped. This is not transactional. This is about how you show up in the world. And I call it giving rides to the airport. That's basically my philosophy of abundance. You only give rides to people and you have a vehicle and you have the time and they would appreciate you. And if you just get in a habit of being that kind of person, well, one day when you need a ride, you're going to get it, but it's likely from someone who witnessed you being really awesome and helpful, and they maybe never got any direct support from you, and that's who's going to want to help you out. So my book launches have been enormous as an example of this. Three independently published books, collectively over 600 Amazon reviews, 5-star reviews, 29 best-selling categories across 4 countries. That doesn't happen because of what I do. It's a collective action, and it's a great opportunity to wake up your network and get them to start seeing what you're working on, and then help them, really set themselves up to be great referral partners and vice versa. So, I mean, I don't do any of these things alone. I think that's the other difference between a day job and working as an entrepreneur.
That's great. So what keeps you up at night then? What's the scary thing about being an entrepreneur? I mean, you've been doing it for 14 years. There's got to be some things that keep you up, other than the pandemic at first.
Well, the pandemic was very hard because I had to really rethink who I was and how I showed up and offered value. And I have this mantra that I have taped to my desk that I think that 15 years ago I was at a workshop and I wrote it out. It's a little Post-it note. I am enough. I have enough. I choose to live with abundance. And I think the thing that scares me most is to fall into a scarcity mindset. So, because when I do, I really put blinders on to opportunities. So March 9th, 2020 was a Monday, and it's the day that I accepted that this was starting to happen. I didn't know what it meant exactly. I didn't know how long it would be, but I knew it was a real thing, and it was going to directly impact the plans I had, because all my plans were in-person conferences, in-person speaking engagements, etc. And that day I gave my first monthly donation, just $10, but it was to a local food bank, because I thought there are going to be people worse off than me. My business is basically defunct. I don't have a business, but other people are going to be worse off than me. Well, it happened 2 months later. I met someone from Feeding America. They oversee 200 food banks and coordinate 200 food banks around the country, provide support to them, and they became my biggest client. And that's not a direct thing, but I was willing to sign up for a workshop to get a certification around virtual convening, and they were at that workshop. And if I had just stayed small and depressed and inert, then none of those opportunities would have happened. So I think right away, just saying I want more possibility in my future, I'm gonna have to put something out there right now and see what comes from it. So that's the thing that keeps me up at night, is the idea that I'm going to fall into a scarcity mindset and close myself off to possibilities. Because who knows what I'll do in 3 years from now? I have to now I no longer can trust my 5-year plan to be exactly as I wrote it, But I know that the pandemic will help me. Yeah.
Something that the pandemic taught us is everything can go out the window literally in a day. Literally. So.
Which is why transferable skills are so needed. And when I backtrack, I wrote a blog post and an email about this. What I do today with virtual events now seems preordained, given my background, my experience, my skill set. None of that was stuff that I had valued or thought of as important, and the world didn't need it. And when the world did need it, I suddenly had those skills and those assets. And, that's the thing. If you stay abundant in your mindset, you also have the network support, right? You keep giving to people, you keep investing in your own community. It's kind of like an insurance policy. You don't pay your insurance every month hoping to use it.
Right? You don't want to use it.
You don't want to use it.
And they don't want you to use it either.
Yeah. So instead, I'm constantly giving back on a regular basis to my network. I don't know what I'll ever need in the future. I hope I won't need anything, but the community is there for me. And that, to me, that keeps me open, and that keeps me going. I don't know what comes next, but I'm loving the ride.
Oh, that's fantastic. And it is a ride. And it's an adventure and all that. So here's a question. What is the most important thing to carry with you all the time?
That I carry with me all the time?
Yes, it can be, metaphysical.
Physically or mental?
It could be both. It could be your microphone.
I mean, I'm going to say, actually, it's my wife's support. She really believes in me. And I told her she'll rue the day. But right before we got married, she said, we were both, I was working nonprofit, she was working for higher ed, and we had about the same salary. And she said, you have higher earning potential than I do. Because you're entrepreneurial, and you're going to have lots of possibilities. And I said, I mean, thanks, but wow, you might rue the day you said that. But she is not someone who wants to be an entrepreneur, but she's the personality who can love and support an entrepreneur. And I think that's a very precious thing. I don't take it for granted. She gives me a lot of leeway in how I'm running my business and a lot of support around the business. And when I was first leaving my day job and, becoming this full-time thing, I got a lot of job opportunities related to my old work, and I turned them all down.
That happens. Isn't that weird?
Oh yeah. They find out you're in the market. And I went to her a few times one night talking like, I'm going to pass up these opportunities. Is that okay? And she basically said, are you asking permission to not make money? And I was like, yes. She says,
sounds
listen,
awesome.
I lived with you and without you. I can afford this place. I love you, but I don't need you.
Oh.
And I was like, yes, that's good. I think it's good. So it's like the freedom to choose my own path in that moment led to a lot of new opportunities. If I had just, done what I've always been paid for in my day job, I wouldn't have been able to grow to where I am today. So I Angie keeps, makes a house a home, helps co-parent our 2 kids in an amazing way.
Yeah.
So I think I married very well. And her and Dory Clark, I credit. Dory early on has been a real supporter of mine when I was first figuring out all this entrepreneurship, and helped me figure out how to leave my day job and all that. And, since then, my wife, these two women have had such an impact on my my journey as an entrepreneur and as a leader.
Yeah.
And just really grateful for both of them.
Oh, that's fantastic. I pressed the wrong button. There we go. Gotta love live streams, right? So where can people find you online? RobbieSamuels.com, I guess, is the best place, right? And it's Robbie IE, not with the Y.
That's right. Samuels is my last name. And and I love to connect people on LinkedIn. Please include a note saying you heard me on Seth's show. That's always really helpful.
Yeah.
But I
just
love that.
Include a note in general is kind of nice too.
Good idea. Yeah. I share a lot of content on LinkedIn. That's one of my primary places to do marketing, but I'm also on Instagram and Facebook. My podcast. Basically, my website has links to everything. My 3 books, my podcast, my TEDx talk, the NPR interview that I was on last year. I mean, it's all on my homepage actually of my website.
That's how it should be.
Yeah,
that's fantastic. And we'll have in the show notes too. I'll
brilliant.
I'll coordinate. I'll do something and get them in the show notes. I can't speak. It's a Monday when we're recording this. So Robbie, thank you so much for being on the program. This has been so much fun. I'm so glad we got to meet. We got to do coffee real soon in person because you're right down the street from me, literally. So
yeah, awesome. Well, thank you for inviting me on, Seth, and hello to everyone.
Yep, and we'll see everyone next time. Goldstein Media hopes you have enjoyed this episode. This podcast is one of the many great shows on the MPN Marketing Podcast Network.